Hi, it's Cheryl, and I am so glad you're here. I wanted to start this series as a follow up to my Becoming series that I hosted last quarter. And the purpose of Becoming was really around like taking that pause and a beat, if you will, and really kind of interrupting our life cycle, taking the opportunity to do that interruption and get really crystal clear on kind of who were we before everyone told us who we were supposed to be. And so when you go from that, I've been really spending a lot of time, whether it's like through the holidays or in the flurry of the first couple of months of this year, and really taking the time to think about what does it mean to live and to practice a sense of enchantment. And I don't mean enchantment like in the mystical, like fairy tale kind of way. I mean a way of like living and embodying who we're supposed to be and incorporating it into our daily rituals. And I really believe that if we don't take the time to focus a bit and to recalibrate ourselves, we often lose it, right? We lose that sense of enchantment. So this isn't like a sense of, there's so much out there, right? About reinventing, about figuring out everything that's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you, right? Like, let's just be clear. But there is something about, right, feeling the power and taking the ownership of coming back to who you are and then living that every day. So part of this six episode series is going to be centered around different components that I personally follow because I need it every single day, to how to feel alive without falling apart. So I was in a meeting, this was like towards the end of last year, and I found myself like being fully there performing, but on the inside I felt like that there were so many other things I needed to be doing in addition to what I was doing. And so while I was fully present for those around me, what I started to realize is I wasn't really there present for myself. Like my jaw was tight, my shoulders up. And what I started to think about was, what is it about this overstimulation that we're taught and that's just around us, right? It's natural, it's just all around. And how do you think about coming back to staying inside what's most important for you and in your life and not falling apart in the other aspects? I don't want it to feel like a sense of abandonment, like if this, then that, but more so, how do I think about encapsulating it all together? So I really started to focus on this theme of enchantment, like enchantment as in like I'm living it and I'm embodying it. I realized that there's so much about, aliveness today means big goals, big ambitions, big disruption, choose your flavor, if you will. And while I think there's maybe a space for that, there's also an acknowledgement and a recognition that intensity isn't what actually propels us forward, is not what actually drives us, is not what's meant to be happiness and to live with your purpose. What that intensity does is it kind of fragments you, and it makes you feel like you need to have all these pieces together and not giving yourself that space and grace. But I started to give myself this permission of like, when do you actually flourish? Aliveness doesn't mean intensity. I think sometimes that's what we're taught. Like, do this, do that, have big ambitions, do this, compete for something over here. But at the end of the day, like, that's not what it's really about. It's about like activation and using activation to take the steps and move in a direction that only speaks to you, that drives you and propels you forward. The past couple of months, I spent some time thinking about this and doing some research. One of the things that was really interesting to me was that philosophically, there's a difference between pleasure and flourishing. And I love this, right? Because I was searching for it. I was so searching for it. And then I found it, right? Pleasure is immediate. It's like instant gratification, right? When you're intensity with something, it's the same kind of thing, right? Like you have this intensity, you're just like next thing, next thing, next thing. And maybe you feed off of that, right? Maybe that gives you a sense of pleasure, but that pleasure isn't long lasting. And what I'm really looking for is the long lasting. And so then I start to think about flourishing, and flourishing is like alignment over time. And when I started to put this down on paper, I was really, really, really struck with the fact that there is such a calming center to that. Flourishing over time, living with our own integrity, and finding that magic kind of sauce. Not that it's perfect. The highs, the lows, consistently realizing that you are on this evolution of growth and that your chapters are still unfolding. It wasn't about coming out of my reality, right? It was more about, and I use this word enchantment a lot, right? So enchantment to me is like the way to feel like I'm not being taken out of my reality, but maybe more importantly, enchantment brings me back into the magic of my life in an effortless, consistent way. So I wanted to have this series that was like around how do we think about activating that? How do we think about activating enchantment? When you think about everything that's going on in the world and in your life, macro, micro, however you choose, you can think about alive, right? Like aliveness within you. And you can feel alive in a crisis. You can feel alive in a launch. You can feel alive in some good news that happens to hit you. The question I was really asking myself is like, can I feel alive on a random day in a random act that's like not big, right? It's small and nothing dramatic. And that's where I really started to think about enchantment isn't about like this peak experience. It's about like this calmness that comes. And the more and more I started to think about that, the more and more I started to realize, well, you're not a really calm person, Cheryl. And I'm not being hard on myself, right? I'm being real. I'm being real in the fact that like, I've been so focused right now on how do I get comfort in my own discomfort, because to me, that intensity, like I would thrive off of it, right? I have so much to do. I need to do this. I need to do that. Oh my God, I have this big goal over here. But at the end of the day, I was racing, right? And when you think about just your nervous system, that's just not good for it. And so I wanted to come back into this like presence, right? This presence of like, how do I be present in a hard conversation? Or how do I slow progress? How do I just, find that joy without thinking about, oh, I want to make sure I do X, Y, Z, which can be really easy for me. And it's not like disassociating from everything, more so being like grounded, right? And being aware that things don't need to be at this pace. They don't need to be in this intensity. And as I started to practice it, and I've actually been practicing it more and more over the past couple of months, it is like I feel myself relax. I feel myself opening up. I feel myself enjoying all of the things that happen, big, small, and also that there is a bit of excitement that comes with that. There's a bit of, oh my gosh, I was doing so much, I was rushing, and yet living my life every day with this core essence of like not entertaining the drama, not entertaining the egos I was facing. And when I did, and that's okay, when I did, kind of coming back to like, is this mine? Is this me? Or is there a way I can go back into who I am? How can I encapsulate the importance of all of us in such an overstimulated world, giving ourselves the permission to come back, to take the pause that we learned in Becoming. And if you didn't see that series, you can find it on my social media. We have reels and clips. But how can I kind of encourage you to come back, right? And not this sense of like performance, but more so a simple question. Am I really here? Am I here? Whether it's in a conversation, whether it is with yourself. Does your body tense? Do your shoulders go up? Does your jaw clench? I asked myself this question, am I here? And I found myself in certain settings. I wasn't. My shoulders were up. My jaw was clenched. I was speaking. I was contributing. But was I fully there? I think I can do better. So what I started to think about is like, there's something that can relax in us. And it's not something that can happen all at once. And so I broke this out into a series that I have been working through. And it's really around this sense of enchantment. And what does it mean to feel alive without falling apart, without feeling like you have this intensity? And finding the joy that comes in, the bad, the good. And maybe more importantly, or perhaps this is just what I'm finding, it is about, I have so much more control. I have so much more control over my productivity. I have so much more control over the love I give out. I have so much more control over the freedom that comes from the sense of enchantment. And what I'm finding is that it is bringing me back to something I knew so far long ago, but maybe just in the hustle and the bustle and the growing and the world and the this and the that, I lost it. And I didn't lose it bad. I'm not like off the rails or something. But what I found over these past couple of months is like, there's still so much untapped in me. There's still so much untapped in what I can do. And if I pay attention, if I pay close attention to, am I here? If I ask myself that simple question in all different types of settings, I learn more and more about the areas I need to focus on to get better, to get stronger, to find new tools in my toolkit. And in the same moment, I find that each step I take forward is actually it's really great. It is really great to work through my discomfort and find this comfort. It's really great to be aware of the areas that maybe I just got into autopilot. And it's really cool when I ask myself, am I here? And I flip the switch from not to being here. There's something really good there. So anyway, I hope that you take a moment to give yourself some permission to ask your question of, am I here? So here's the exercise that I want you to do. Not a reinvention, just an experiment. Once a day, just once a day, I want you to pause for 30 seconds. And I want you to ask yourself, am I here? Not am I productive? Not am I impressing people? Not am I ahead of so-and-so or XYZ that I want to be ahead of? But just, am I here? I can share with you the differences that question has made for me. But ask yourself that question and just notice, how does your body feel? How does your jaw feel? How do your shoulders? I always say like, ooh, shoulders down, when I realize my shoulders are up. And that's where I want you to think, right? Like, what happens when you're not speeding up? And that's it. I don't want you to think about fixing it. I don't want you to think about like what's wrong. There's no fixing, there's no what's wrong. But I do want you to notice, because I have found that in that noticing, I can take that and get better the next time around. So when I ask myself, am I here in that same type of setting, I can feel the difference. And so what I want you to do is just take that simple question, okay? Pause once a day, 30 seconds, and ask yourself, am I here? And listen to the answers that you're giving yourself. Because it's really easy to be like, oh yeah, sure, I'm here, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But the question really becomes, am I here? And not productive, not performing, not impressive, right? Am I just inhabiting myself, my body, my presence in that moment? And when you find that answer, also notice what's good, what's not so good. And then when you come back to it the next day, just see if anything changes, right? See if you become more aware. See if maybe you catch yourself in those moments of not really being there, and coming back to it. And so ask yourself, am I here? Once a day, 30 seconds. The next time we get together, I really want to focus on safety, because safety is something I've realized I have worked a lot on. And it's not that I don't feel safe or any of that. It's more around safety and permission to feel that it is okay to live in flow and alignment when a world is trying to tell you that it's intensity. And in some cases, right, that safety can feel like, am I the only person who thinks this way? Is something wrong with me that I'm trying to do this? Especially in different environments. I don't know all of your environments, but I'm sure some part of that will resonate with you. And so when we come together, we're going to talk about what does it mean to feel safe and how do we create our own safe. Think of it as like, the way I describe it to people, it's like it's my own warm hug to myself, right? It's my own warm hug of like, yeah, you're on the right track. So I hope I have piqued a little bit of your curiosity. I hope that you find a portion of this to realize, where are you in the spectrum of performing and living your life? And how do we think about enchantment as a way to not be fantasy, but a way to live our life that has purpose and intention and magic without falling apart with all the things we get told to do. So I hope to see you back. I appreciate you being here, and lots of love to you.